Devin Haney has a quite underwhelming comeback performance. He got the job done at the end of the day, so congratulations to the victory. Ultimately it wasn't the best performance though. I feel like Devin was supposed to have a shaky performance though. Taking that beating from a guy that was on PEDs, at the end of the day, Devin's not supposed to look 100%. How could you look 100% when you faced and deal with that trauma from fighting a guy who, judging from Ryan Garcia's performance and comparing it to when he fought Devin last April, you could clearly see that, now you can assume and say that Ryan Garcia's PEDs were definitely impacting his performance, because we saw him against Rolly Romero, completely different fighter, both physically, mentally, and verbally. He even sounded different. His voice changed back because ultimately the PEDs were out of his system. The PEDs probably did, impact him. But I don't think that's the only thing that, made Devin Haney not look good. I think Devin ultimately is a small 144-pounder, at that weight class. Jose looked bigger, and Devin was not allowing Jose to hit him with anything crazy, which is a big reason why he won the fight. His defense was pretty solid. Early on, though, definitely got his head snapped back a few times, got, hit clean early in the fight, more than you would like to see from Devin coming off a long layoff. But like I said, it's a long layoff. He's going to have ring rust. He's not going to be the best. He's not going to have the best performance. He had a shaky performance. It is what it is. He had very low output ultimately. I respect Jose Ramirez. It was what I thought. He's on the decline. So to see Devin Haney, win in that fashion was definitely expected, but he underperformed in my opinion. I feel like I was expecting more from Devin. I thought he was going to be a little bit more busy, a little bit more of a higher work rate. He just didn't have that in the arsenal, on fight night. But it is what it is. He got the job done, and it's on to the next. For him, I'm not too interested in the Ryan Garcia and Devin rematch as of now. Ultimately I'd watch it if it goes down, but ultimately both guys underperformed. They didn't really deliver on their promises. They overpromised and underdelivered, both Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. So that rematch definitely can still be made, but ultimately these performances that they just had brought the stock of the rematch down for sure, because now it's like Ryan already lost to Rolly. Devin doesn't look like the same fighter. So where do you even go? You want to go back into that rematch now when there's no momentum on either side? Truthfully, no disrespect to Devin, but it wasn't a phenomenal performance where you're like, oh, yep, it had to be the PEDs. It was also like Devin still looks like a small guy against any other fighter because his power isn't anything for any opponent to worry about, because you saw Jose Ramirez lose that fight convincingly, but if you look at his face after the fight, Ramirez was fine. Devin didn't really inflict any damage. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but their camps after the fight, after Ramirez lost to Haney and Haney got the victory, they met in the hotel lobby, and the teams, Team Ramirez and Team Haney, they went at it. Ramirez's son got involved, Haney's brother got involved, his family got involved, and it just got a little bit ugly. But for me, I felt like, Robert Garcia, he does what he can with, what he has. And Ramirez is a fighter that was pretty good, but, is now on the decline. And that was clear and apparent. His work rate definitely decreased. He couldn't keep up with the rhythm and the speed of Devin Haney, which I had predicted prior to the fight taking place. But it is what it is. Devin still didn't look phenomenal for what Jose Ramirez was. For Jose Ramirez to be on the decline, I think Devin should have stepped on the gas a little bit more. Like I said, his work rate was just really low. He still, like I said, did get the win, but it wasn't a great performance either. So it's like, I look at that rematch now, and it's like, it's not as appealing anymore. For sure, it's not as appealing anymore, because Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia were both supposed to look stellar on a card that was really over-promoted. You could say over-promoted, and then the actual fights under-delivered, because Haney, despite getting the win, didn't have anything too special. It wasn't a stellar performance, but he got the victory that we expected him to get. He's not supposed to look incredible after taking a beating. But Ryan Garcia, coming off that fight where he tested positive for PEDs, we were trying to see, is he still that same dominant fighter? And he wasn't. He moved up in weight, probably to a weight class where he doesn't really belong. Even though, he said he tried to make weight, you could tell from his physique, he could have still lost some extra pounds to really be chiseled. He wasn't, looking too great in terms of physical shape, and that was apparent. So shout out to Devin Haney for getting the victory, getting his comeback fight getting back on the bike, but still just wasn't a very good performance. It was still a shaky performance from Devin. But that Ryan Garcia versus Haney rematch definitely doesn't look as appealing right now. Maybe they changed their plans because that fight isn't going to sell as well as we thought it would, especially now that Rolly was able to pull off the biggest upset of the year against Ryan Garcia. But let me know down below what you guys think about the Haney and Ryan Garcia rematch and whether or not Devin had a good performance or not. I thought he got the job done, just was a pretty shaky performance in my opinion. But thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next Boxing video. Peace.